The rain tapped gently against the tall glass windows of my office, each drop catching the golden glow of the city lights below. My silk blouse clung lightly to my shoulders, warm from the soft hum of the heater, and the faint scent of jasmine from my perfume lingered in the air. I was reviewing the final sketches for next season's collection when my phone buzzed. A simple notification, a tag in an old wedding photo. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity won. The image loaded slowly, revealing a younger version of me. Hair tied back in soft waves, makeup understated, wearing that dress. The same dress my parents had called cheap in front of half the guests. I could almost hear their laughter again, see the way my mother's perfectly manicured hand covered her smirk while my father whispered something to their friends. My lips curved into the faintest smile now, because just above the photo, in a fresh comment, someone had tagged the designer. My designer. The one whose name carried weight in fashion circles. The one they had boasted about wearing for years. And there it was, his reply, casual but loaded. Funny, she owns the brand now. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words settle like a warm, secret victory. The past had just walked straight into my present. It was 5 years ago, but that day is burned into me as sharply as the needle that stitched every seam of that dress. I remember standing in front of the mirror, taking one last look at myself before stepping out. The fabric wasn't designer. It was something I had found in a small fabric shop tucked away in an alley, a place where the owner knew me by name and never looked at me like I didn't belong. I had spent nights hunched over my tiny sewing machine, pricking my fingers until they were raw, determined to make something that felt mine. When I walked into the wedding hall, my cousin's wedding, the chandeliers cast a warm light over every glittering gown and tuxedo. And then came their eyes. My parents. A split second of scanning me from head to toe, followed by that telltale exchange of looks. My father leaned toward my mother, lips curling into something between amusement and disdain. Looks like she picked that up from a thrift store. My mother didn't even lower her voice when she replied. If only she'd asked me, I could have lent her something respectable. Laughter, not loud enough for everyone to hear, but sharp enough to slice through me. I felt my throat tighten. My hands curled around the small clutch I carried, the metal clasp digging into my palm. I wanted to shrink, disappear between the perfectly decorated tables and the scent of roses and expensive perfume. Then I felt a gentle touch on my arm. It was Mrs. Kumar, my old neighbor, who had watched me grow up. She smiled softly and whispered, "You look beautiful, Beta. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. People forget. It's the woman who makes the dress, not the other way around." Her words lodged somewhere deep in me, steadying my breath. And as the night went on, I watched my parents flaunt their connections, boasting about wearing a dress designed by a man they thought I could never even meet. I realized then they didn't just underestimate me, they didn't see me at all. That was the night I made a silent promise to myself. I would never again give them the power to define my worth. By the time the evening ended, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to take my skill, my stubbornness, and the little money I had saved, and I was going to build something they couldn't ignore. The first few months after that wedding were a blur of exhaustion and determination. I left my part-time receptionist job and took a leap I couldn't afford, literally. I started working at a small local boutique that specialized in custom dresses. The owner, Aisha, was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a knack for spotting talent where others saw nothing. She noticed the hem of the skirt I wore on my first day, perfectly aligned, with hand-stitched detailing most people would overlook. "You made this?" she asked, one brow raised. I nodded. "Good. Then you're not just going to steam clothes and sweep floors. You're going to learn." And she taught me. Days were spent helping customers, learning fabric types, studying the fall and weight of different materials. Nights were my own, sewing in my cramped apartment, sketching ideas under the dim kitchen light, fingers aching but my heart strangely full. I failed more times than I succeeded. I burned fabric with a faulty iron. I misjudged measurements. I cried quietly into my pillow some nights, wondering if I'd made a colossal mistake. Then came my first small win. A bride walked in, desperate after a mix-up with her original designer. With Aisha's encouragement, I took on the challenge. I poured myself into every detail, the beading, the lining, the way the veil caught the light. When she walked out wearing my creation, her eyes shone with tears. "This is perfect," she whispered. She posted about it online. One post became two. Two became a dozen. Soon, strangers were messaging me for custom work. I saved every rupee, investing in better equipment, higher quality fabric, and eventually, a tiny rented workshop. I didn't tell my parents. I kept my social media modest, a few vague updates about projects and busy seasons, because I wasn't ready for their comments, their skepticism, or their backhanded advice. A year later, Aisha introduced me to a well-connected fashion consultant who had worked with major brands. She saw my portfolio and said simply, "You're not just making dresses. You're telling stories. And people will pay for that." With her guidance, I registered my own label, starting small, selling exclusive pieces to private clients. My style caught the attention of a young celebrity who wore one of my gowns to an award show. Overnight, my inbox exploded. By the third year, my brand was stocked in upscale boutiques. By the fourth, I bought out a struggling but prestigious fashion house, the very one my parents used to worship. Their star designer? He became my head of creative operations. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't flaunt it. My joy was in the work, in seeing women stand taller when they wore something I'd made. But I knew someday, the truth would come out. It happened on a late Friday afternoon. My assistant peeked into my office, her voice low but excited. "Ma'am, there's a couple here asking for you. They say they're your parents." For a second, my heart skipped. We hadn't spoken in years. Our conversations had dwindled to the occasional obligatory festival greeting. "Why now?" I told her to let them in. They entered cautiously, as if stepping into unfamiliar territory. My office was a blend of modern glass and warm textures, soft beige walls, gold-accented shelves lined with fashion books, framed sketches from my early designs, and photographs from runway shows. A large rack in the corner held my latest collection, rich fabrics flowing in deep jewel tones. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the air. My mother's eyes flickered over the decor, pausing on the awards lined neatly on the console. My father kept his gaze moving, his jaw tight. "We were in the area," my mother began, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from her designer scarf. "Thought we'd drop by." I gestured toward the velvet chairs across from my desk. "Please sit." They did, but not comfortably. My father finally asked, "So, you work here?" I let the question hang for a moment, watching them try to piece things together. "Not exactly," I said softly. "I own this place." Silence. Then my mother laughed lightly, as if I had made a charming joke. "You own it? That's impressive." I didn't answer. Instead, I stood, walked to the rack in the corner, and pulled out a gown, silk, with intricate embroidery that shimmered under the soft lighting. "Recognize this?" I asked. Her eyes widened. "That's from Marquez Couture. We've worn their pieces for years." I smiled faintly. "Yes. Marquez Couture. The brand I bought out 2 years ago." The air shifted. My father blinked. "You what?" "I bought it. And your favorite designer, the one who made all your gala dresses? He works for me now." Their faces were a portrait of disbelief. My mother's lips parting in shock, my father's posture stiffening, eyes darting to the awards again, as if they might confirm my words. I set the gown back gently. "Do you remember the dress you laughed at? At Anika's wedding?" My mother's hand hesitated midair. "Yes. That was mine," I said. "I designed it. Sewed it by hand. Every bead, every stitch. You called it cheap. I called it the beginning." My father cleared his throat. "We didn't mean—" "You did," I interrupted softly but firmly. "And it's fine. I'm not here to rewrite the past. I'm here because the past walked into my office today, and I thought you should see what I've built with it." The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the heater. My mother finally spoke, her voice quieter. "We didn't realize." "No," I said, returning to my seat. You didn't. You saw what you wanted to see. And maybe that's why I never told you. Success tastes sweeter when it's mine alone. They didn't argue. Their eyes moved slowly around the room again. The framed contracts with global boutiques, the photos of celebrities in my gowns, the plaque by the door that read, Founder and Creative Director. In that moment, I wasn't the girl in the cheap dress anymore. I was the woman who owned a room. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on the desk. So, why are you here? Really? My father shifted in his seat. Things haven't been going well. Business is slow. We've had to cut back. My mother added quickly, we thought maybe you could help. Just until things pick up again. The irony didn't escape me. The same people who once dismissed me were now sitting in my office, looking for support. I let a moment of silence stretch between us before answering. I can help, I said slowly, but not without conditions. They both straightened, their expressions a mix of hope and caution. First, I began, you apologize, not just to me, but to every person you've ever belittled for not meeting your idea of respectable. You start by admitting that your worth isn't tied to brand names or social circles. My father's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Second, I continued, you change how you speak to people, especially family. No more casual cruelty. No more mocking someone's clothes or job or choices. My mother looked down at her lap, fingers twisting her scarf. Third, I said, my voice steady but warm, you invest time into something real. Not just appearances, real skills, real community. You've spent years building an image. Now, I want to see you build something that lasts. They were quiet for a long time. Finally, my father asked, and if we agree? Then I'll help. I'll connect you to the right people, guide you where I can. But if I see you slip back into old habits, even once, it ends. I softened my tone slightly. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because I refuse to let the same patterns repeat. I built my life from nothing because I refuse to be trapped by them. You can do the same, but only if you're willing to change. My mother's eyes glistened, though she blinked quickly, as if unwilling to let me see. My father nodded once, stiff but sincere. All right, he said quietly. We'll try. I leaned back, giving them a small smile. Good. Then, this isn't just my victory. It can be yours, too, if you want it. They left soon after, walking more slowly than they had entered. As the door closed behind them, I felt something lift from my chest, not triumph, exactly, but a sense of balance. For once, I wasn't the daughter trying to earn their approval. I was the woman setting the terms. Weeks passed before I heard from them again. But when I did, it wasn't a request for money or a list of complaints. It was a photo. My father, wearing a simple linen kurta, standing beside a group of young trainees at a local vocational center. My mother, in a plain cotton sari, helping arrange fabrics on a table. The caption read, "Starting fresh." It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. I found myself smiling. Not because I believed they had changed completely, but because I saw the first crack in the armor they had worn for decades. In the quiet of my office, I picked up the small silver thimble that sat on my desk, the one Mrs. Kumar had given me all those years ago, after I sewed my first dress in her living room. Her words came back to me. It's the woman who makes the dress, not the other way around. Back then, it had been comfort. Now it was truth. I thought about the girl I used to be, standing in that wedding hall, cheeks burning, clutching a dress everyone else thought was too plain. If I could, I would walk up to her and whisper, "Just wait. One day they'll see you." And not because I needed them to see me, but because I had built something worth looking at. That evening, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city stretched before me, alive with light and motion. Somewhere out there, people were wearing my designs, not because of a label, but because it made them feel like their best selves. I breathed in the cool night air and let my shoulders relax. I wasn't the girl in the cheap dress anymore. I was the woman who had turned it into a crown. And I didn't need their applause to know. I had already won.